The expansion of the World Wide Web has revolutionized the way in which museums communicate with one another. While attempts to align cataloging through common nomenclatures and authorities go back decades, it is only with the emergence of the semantic web that it has become truly feasible to deploy common terminologies. The advent of open data has enabled users to link information across geographies, and terminologies can be updated regularly online, and the need for costly revisions of paper publications is gone. However, some key challenges remain. How do we make accessible information in databases in languages other than English? How do we ensure that even the smallest, both in size and in terms of human resources, institutions can benefit from the semantic web? And how do we keep vocabularies relevant and up-to-date for a diverse community of institutions? The aim of this talk is to share our experience so far with trying to meet those challenges by providing an online platform for shared cultural heritage authorities and control terminologies called Culturenov. Culturenov, meaning approximately cultural hub, is an open platform for common cultural heritage authorities, and it's free for anyone to use. While most of the data on the platform is managed and used by our partner museums in Norway and Sweden, who also use the collections management system Primus. The open API and the possibility to export data to Excel and CSV formats means that anyone can use it in their collections management systems. Culturenov is financed by the Norwegian Arts Council and developed by KulturIT in very close collaboration with cultural heritage institutions in Norway and Sweden. It's the users that make the platform. Culturenov handles all types of authorities as datasets, and there are currently 5 types. Agents, which includes groups, organizations, persons. Named objects, including buildings, ships and railway stations. Concepts, places, and time spans. The range of datasets on Culturenov is vast and include everything from national registers of photographers or artists to names of railway stations and different terms for cutlery. Each dataset is made up of a number of records. The number of records can range from 1 to sometimes thousands. And each of these records can have a great depth of data. Most commonly, records have a label, perhaps an alternative label, descriptions, and 1 or 2 related concepts. However, it's possible to create a very detailed record with examples, references, preferred, non-preferred names, dialectical labels, and so on. In addition, a term can be recorded in an almost unlimited number of languages. In this case, 8. The platform also supports full CDWA creator records, although this record is unusual and most person entries focus on the names and biographical information. Where available, name records can be enhanced with snippets from Wikidata and other online encyclopedias by just adding a link to the entry on the platform. From the snippet, the user can then click on Read Full Article and go to the Wikipedia link. To upload or create a dataset requires a user account on culturenov.org. Once this is set up, KulturIT can import an existing vocabulary, or the user can create a dataset by adding concepts. Each dataset is attached to an official owner. This owner is usually an institution with expertise within the subject that the dataset covers. As here, for example, we have the database of photographers in Sweden, a dataset which is owned by the Nordic Museum, a museum with a large photographic collection. The owner institution then appoints an administrator who is responsible for the maintenance of the dataset. In turn, the administrator can nominate editors and reviewers. And these roles can be filled by users from other institutions so that networks of experts can cooperate around the dataset. And here under the tab Permissions, we can see that this dataset has 2 administrators, several editors, and even more reviewers. And they're all from a range of different museums and institutions. Each dataset must have information about the owner, administrators, editors and reviewers, and must provide a description of the purpose and content of the dataset, as well as information about rights. Here to the right of the headings is information about the use of the dataset. So here is the number of institutions using it, the number of percentage of records with links from Digitalt Museum. Digitaltmuseum.org is the publishing platform for Primus users, and it also shows how many objects are linked through this dataset. In addition to the datasets that are created and maintained by museums and other institutions, Culturenov also contains datasets which are not editable, and the Europeana Fashion Thesaurus dataset is an example of this. This dataset contains so-called placeholders, which are static records which have been uploaded from another source and can therefore not be edited in Culturenov. Any changes must be made in the original source to avoid creating new UUIDs for objects which already have one. However, users can still download these datasets as term lists or use them in the Primus database. As I have mentioned, users of the Primus Collections Management System can access Culturenov and use datasets directly in their database. To do that, the user will add a name and search in a list and choose Fetch from Culturenov, make a search, and then select the entry they wish to save in the database. Now, to improve the quality of the information on Culturenov, there are a number of tools for collaboration around the creation of datasets, as well as for data enhancement available. For example, as has been mentioned earlier, records can be enhanced with data from other sources such as Wikipedia. And in addition to this, there is an improvement panel which can be opened by clicking on this magic wand. And this improvement panel gives suggestions for data that can be added to the record. These suggestions come from within Culturenov or from external sources. And here we have, for example, a date that can be added, some coordinates, a same as relation, and then references to matching terms, in this case in VF, the Virtual International Authority file. By choosing to use person records and concepts from Culturenov instead of entries from their local database registers, users of the Primus Collections Management System already ensure that information across institutions in Norway and Sweden is linked and easily retrieved on the common online platform Digitalt Museum. Matching the Culturenov entries to external sources, such as VIAF or the Getty AAT, opens up the information in these databases further to the possibility of even wider connections on the semantic web. To further improve the quality of the Culturenov entries, Culturenov provides tools that will allow users from different institutions to work together to refine the shared information. On the platform, an owner has the option to open up a dataset so that anyone can suggest new terms and propose improvements. Where this option is chosen, any user with an account can propose a change directly in the dataset. There is this suggestion comment panel that opens up to the right of the entry, and here the user can write a message, comment, proposal, or register interest to collaborate on the dataset. The editors of the dataset receive a notification when a suggestion has been made, and then has the option to either edit the suggestion and keep it, or reject it and delete it, or accept it, or just reject it. And to further improve the conversation, there is an option to have a dialogue around the suggestions through the dialogue tool. By applying such crowdsourcing functionality to datasets, users are given an opportunity to ensure that vocabularies contain the concepts they need, and that the quality of the information contained in the record of the concept is high. But at the same time, it also opens up for more formal collaboration around complete datasets, in the sense that institutions who collaborate around a few terminologies can get together and create a bigger project where they create a set of vocabularies and registers. And these tools help them have conversations along the way. The result of these efforts to create and improve on datasets is hundreds of thousands of concepts and person records that can be used to catalog any type of collection. The benefits of the collaborative approach and the shared vocabularies may be further illustrated with this example. The artist Ida von Schulzenheim has an entry in the Swedish National List of Artists on Culturenov, a list maintained and created by the National Museum of Sweden. As you can see, this record has 362 links, and only 2 of them to artworks in the National Museum. But through this Culturenov record, Gävleborg County Museum has been able to connect 360 of their objects to the 2 artworks in the National Museum, and suddenly Ida von Schulzenheim has become much more visible on the web. The benefit of common open vocabularies for institutions with smaller and lesser known collections can be significant, as this shows. However, smaller institutions with specialist collections can, and of course do, also contribute greatly to Culturenov. For example, a dataset like that of Norwegian canning factories, maintained by the Canning Museum in Norway, can have wider use than one might expect. Where else would a museum with an obscure Norwegian tin can in their collection find everything they need to know about a factory that canned it, and also so readily available? Previously, such specialist information was inaccessible to national institutions, as it was usually held only in local databases. As a result, these datasets are likely the only available source on individuals and topics not covered by VIAF, Getty AAT, or even Wikipedia. So to sum up, collaboratively produced information makes for more relevant datasets. And in our experience, increased relevance leads to better and more frequent usage. Similarly, encouraging all types of vocabularies to be published on Culturenov ensures that also all types of institutions can benefit from them. But of course, our approach is not without challenges. The aspects that are Culturenov's strengths are unfortunately also sometimes its weakness. As you have just heard, the focus of Culturenov has been on providing relevant data of high quality that is used, rather than attempting to create complete vocabularies or person authorities. This has resulted in a number of challenges. Inconsistencies in the depth of data recorded for each entry. One subject has been divided into many datasets. This is, for example, if there's one owner who is an expert on guitars and another is an expert on pianos, they create one dataset each, and then we have two datasets of musical instruments rather than one that then has several facets or hierarchies. Most notable might be the incomplete datasets and subject areas where there are large gaps in the data. If you're looking for a complete list of archaeological materials, for example, you would probably have to look in several different datasets or somewhere else completely. But you can find a very detailed list of different types of post offices. In addition to these, some datasets become static as administrators or editors who have been the driving force behind them leave their institution or can no longer work on them for whatever reason. And finally, many institutions still prefer to use local vocabularies for some catalogues, as these contain terminology which is well understood internally, and are not really comfortable with using registers which are not theirs. Now, Culturenov addresses these challenges in a number of ways. As you've seen, the inbuilt improvement panel, for example, can help to reduce discrepancies in data depth, and can also propose synonyms and alternative terms so that local database terminology can be maintained in the shared vocabularies so that they can be used with their local terminology as well as with more common terminology. Further, a user primus can also choose to save a local copy of any authority record so that it can be handled like a local authority, and you can add information to it which may have little or no significance for the wider museum community and therefore need not be on Culturenov. But most importantly, perhaps, is focusing on more collaboration and keeping the datasets up to date and maintained. And Culturenov was developed as a government-funded response to an increasingly apparent need for a unified approach to vocabulary management. And more recently, this commitment to the Culturenov project has been reinforced in the form of a Norwegian Art Council grant. And this grant will encourage cultural institutions to take responsibility for datasets within their expertise, as well as collaborate with other institutions with similar collections. And this activity will address many of the challenges that I just mentioned, in particular making sure that datasets don't become static. Collaboration means that we can cover more subject areas and complete datasets, and hopefully it will also ensure that more users will feel comfortable to use the datasets. On our part at KulturIT, we will of course continue to provide training on how to use Culturenov and hold workshops with our museum partners to exchange ideas and competence. Because the more we can support the dataset administrators and editors in their efforts to collaborate, the lower the threshold will be for them to engage each other and take a shared long-term responsibility for the content. So we have a lot of work to do as well. For the future, we of course want to find more and better links to cultural heritage data beyond Scandinavia, and we will also continue to exchange links with Wikidata in order to reach more international users who may benefit from the information on Culturenov. In some areas, we still need to convince cultural heritage policymakers and museum leaders that shared, comprehensive and up-to-date vocabularies are an essential part of the museum's mission to preserve and share knowledge. And so we will continue to talk about Culturenov and the important work that our partner museums do in collaborating around the shared vocabulary. So I will leave you with the hope that Culturenov will grow and become even better, and I invite you all to visit the site and sign up for an account and start building vocabularies. And do contact us with any questions you may have or suggestions. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm keeping an eye on the watch the time and looking at questions. Maybe just one very quickly from me. It looks like Culturenov is doing many different things, which is great. I guess I wasn't quite clear on the process to edit terms, for example, or if there are terms already in Culturenov that need to be changed or edited or enhanced. What's the process for doing this? I gather editors can have an account in Culturenov and do it manually, but is there kind of a programmatic, I don't want to say integration, but handshake between Culturenov and maybe the endpoint for a museum, either XML or
Yes. So you're thinking of, could you make a change in the list directly from your database, for example, or your CMS? Is that what you're thinking about? Because this is something, I mean, we would like to be able to do, that you could send terminology from PMUS to CMS up to Culturenov directly, and then make the change there and make sure that it's updated everywhere. So I suppose that would be the next step, to have that kind of integration where you can work directly in your system and don't have to go out. So, but of course, then you would no longer have the collaboration in the same way, unless I suppose you could send a suggestion from the system, and then the reviewer would look at it and say, okay, this is acceptable for this list, or suggest this should go in this data set, or yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, different models, but yeah. I think Thomas, you had a question for Sarah?
Yes, please. So first of all, thank you for this really brilliant presentation. That's an inspiring project. We are actually working on a similar project in Zurich, Switzerland, and is obviously focused on Swiss artists. And we are doing something similar and trying to engage linked data as much as possible. So the logical question would be, is your system actually meant to be consumed on the fly, so that we could embed your data on a website of ours, for instance? Just to give you one example, one point of interest, we are working with the architecture archive of the Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich, and they have a lot of architects from Sweden. So, and since we are lazy people, at least I am, we don't want to do other people's work, and especially not because you do it better.
Yes. So you mean, could you display Culturenov data on your website, for example? Yes, of course, you could use the link. It is open, it's free. So if you wanted to use that information in your data sets, that it's not a problem. And even better if we can link back to you somehow, so that there is, of course, the cross link.
We would be happy.
Yeah. Good.
Thank you.
Great. All right. Thank you, Sarah, again for this great presentation.
Thank you.